First up, we got Joel Kim Booster. Comedian and actor Joel Kim Booster shared his thoughts on Dave Chappelle's homophobic and racist joke about Asians in his Netflix special Sticks and Stones. In an interview with All of It, the Korean American responded to the joke, which includes Chappelle doing a racist impression of a Chinese person, in an effort to make a jab at trans people. Chappelle joked that if trans people were born in the wrong body, he could apply that same logic to race, then making a point to include that his wife is Asian. When asked about the joke, Booster said, quote, "It's kind of sad. I think Chappelle used to have really interesting and precedent things to say about power structures and things like that, and I just don't think he's interested in dismantling that anymore. At least not from an interesting place, or at least not from beyond his own point of view, which in his right is a comic, I guess, but I felt a little bit, I don't know, old when I watched it." Next up, Michael Jackson's Accusers. During his hit Netflix comedy special Sticks and Stones, Dave Chappelle took aim at Michael Jackson accusers Wade Robson and James Safechuck. The pair had just come forward in a documentary revealing that while they were friends with Jackson as kids, they were sexually abused. In Sticks and Stones, Chappelle flat out says he doesn't believe the pair. He then shared a dark joke, saying that the men should almost be proud that they had that experience with Michael Jackson because of his fame and stature. Chappelle then responded to claims that they went on free trips with Jackson to Hawaii, with Chappelle adding, quote, "I know it's harsh, but somebody's gotta teach these kids there's no such thing as a free trip to Hawaii." In statements to TMZ, both Robson and Safechuck responded to Chappelle's routine. Safechuck said, quote, "I'm heartbroken for all those children who look to see how they will be received when they finally find the courage to speak out about their I just want to reach out to other survivors and let them know that we can't let this type of behavior silence us. Together we are strong." Robson's lawyer added that, quote, "It's unfortunate that Chappelle has chosen to use his platform to shame victims and spread his ignorance about the way it's perpetrated upon children." Next up, Eve 6. Following Chappelle's controversial comments about the trans community in his latest special, The Closer, rock band Eve 6 decided to share their thoughts on Twitter. During the special, Chappelle labeled himself a TERF and said that gender is a fact, even adding every person in the world had to pass through a woman's legs to be on Earth, then adding that genitalia the trans women have is like Beyond Meat or the Impossible Burger. The band later tweeted about the comments, quote, "Dave Chappelle says Twitter isn't a real place, and he's right. The real places are the alleys and underpasses where trans people on the margins are murdered because of societal prejudice that he is lazily defending under the pretense of intellectual bravery." However, many criticized this tweet, saying the band missed the full picture about what was said in the special. Next up, Key and Peele. Dave Chappelle is beloved by those in the comedy world other than Key and Peele. This is because Chappelle threw some shade at the pair during an interview with Gayle King for CBS. During that interview, Chappelle admitted that it hurt him to see the pair using the types of comedy that he fought hard to establish during Chappelle's show without any credit. He said, quote, "I fought very hard when I watched Key and Peele, and I see they're doing a format that I created, and at the end of the show it says created by Key and Peele. That hurts my feelings." The pair never directly responded to Chappelle's accusations, but Jordan Peele indirectly responded on Twitter. After a few fans were speaking amongst themselves that Key and Peele stole Dave's show, Peele responded in a tweet of his own, responding, quote, "Everything's gonna be alright fellas," along with a photo of him and Chappelle speaking. Next up, the organization GLAAD. After Chappelle premiered his latest comedy special, backlash flooded in about his jokes against the LGBT+ community. The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation organization even tweeted condemning Chappelle. They wrote, quote, "Dave Chappelle's brand has become synonymous with ridiculing trans people and other marginalized communities. Negative reviews and viewers loudly condemning his latest special is a message to the industry that audiences don't support platforming anti-LGBTQ diatribes. We agree." And this is just one of many organizations that have spoken out against Chappelle and his jokes that target the community. Next up, Jacqueline Moore. Like I said above, Chappelle's special The Closer has generated tons of backlash from the LGBT+ community, specifically trans people. Jacqueline Moore is one of those people. She's a trans writer for shows like Dear White People and the upcoming Peacock reboot of Queer as Folk. But she said on Twitter following the special that she is done with Netflix for supporting Chappelle's jokes. Moore tweeted, quote, "I love so many of the people that I've worked with at Netflix. Brilliant people and executives who've been collaborative and fought for important art. But I've been thrown against walls because I'm not a real woman, and I've had beer bottles thrown at me, so Netflix, I'm done." Adding in another tweet, quote, "I will not work with them as long as they continue to put out and profit from blatantly and dangerously transphobic content." After the tweets, it was reported that Jacqueline Moore along with 2 other Netflix staff were suspended for tweeting about the show, but it was revealed after that they were actually suspended for trying to crash a meeting that was happening between the bigwigs at the company. It seems that Chappelle is not fazed by the backlash, and even said following the backlash at another stand-up show, quote, "If this is what being cancelled is like, I love it," he said as the crowd gave him a standing ovation. And finally, at number 1, Dave Chappelle himself. The person who does the most to warn us about Dave Chappelle is himself, as he continues to make jokes that he knows will get him cancelled, although he doesn't really seem to care. After facing tons of backlash for The Closer, he told a Los Angeles crowd, quote, "If this is what being cancelled is like, I love it." He continued by trashing liberal-leaning organizations, saying, quote, "F Twitter, F NBC News, ABC News, all of these stupid networks. I'm not talking to them, I'm talking to you. This is real life." In many of his specials, Dave addresses the LGBT community and tries to respond to the claims that they've made about him from his controversial jokes. He even jokingly called himself a, quote, "transphobic comedian" in his latest special, leaning into the names that the media has given him. At this time, it seems that Dave might know he's pushed the limits of his comedy too far, as he announced he is going to be taking a break from comedy following the release of his special. He even ended off his last show saying he will no longer be making jokes about the LGBT community, saying, quote, "I am not telling another joke about you until we are both sure we are laughing together. I'm telling you, I'm done. I'm done talking. All I ask from your community with all humility, will you please stop punching down on my people?" Which was a controversial reference insinuating that LGBTQ+ community is punching down on the black community. Starting off this list with number 10, Daniel Radcliffe. After J.K. Rowling first started being vocal about her stance against trans women, Daniel Radcliffe decided to respond and made his opinion on the matter clear. Radcliffe does not have any social media accounts, so he shared his thoughts in a blog post for the Trevor Project. He said in part, quote, "Transgender women are women. Any statement to the contrary erases the identity and dignity of transgender people and goes against all advice given by professional health care associates who have far more expertise on the subject matter than either Joe Rowling or I." He made sure to state that his comments are not infighting between him and Rowling, but rather he wants to ensure no more harm is done to the trans community. Adding, quote, "It's clear that we need to do more to support transgender and non-binary people, not invalidate their identities, and not cause further harm." Radcliffe also stated he's an ally to trans and non-binary youth, and he's still learning every day how to be better. Then adding that he hopes Rowling's comments do not tarnish the experience that fans had reading the books.
At number 9, Emma Watson. Actress Emma Watson was part of the Harry Potter franchise since basically the beginning. She starred in all of the film adaptations and she brought the character Hermione Granger to life. She also obviously had a very close relationship with J.K. Rowling. So when the author was facing backlash last year for her transphobic comments, it's quite understandable that she would have something to say about the whole controversy. Emma is quite the activist, advocating for human rights, specifically women's rights, as well as the LGBTQ+ community, so when she saw the author's comments about trans women, she spoke up and called the author out for the offensive things that she had been saying on Twitter. Emma also took to Twitter to speak out about the situation, saying, quote, "Trans people are who they say they are and deserve to live their lives without being constantly questioned or told they aren't who they say they are. I want my trans followers to know that I and so many other people around the world see you, respect you, and love you for who you are." End quote. Giving her trans followers, who are no doubt fans of the Harry Potter franchise, the reassurance that she does not condone the comments that were made by the author, as well as reassurance that she still loves and respects the community, is just one way that she sort of stuck it to the author.
In at number 8, Jameela Jamil. Jameela is another celebrity that used their platform to speak out against J.K. Rowling. After Rowling publicly tweeted in support of a woman named Maya Forrester, who lost her job because of her opinions on sex, Jamil decided to respond. Jamil first responded simply writing, "Unfollows J.K. Rowling, #TransLivesMatter." Jamil then followed it up with a second tweet, adding, quote, "Please follow more trans people. Please read about their experiences in this world and know you are contributing to their erasure, abuse, and suffering by supporting those who deny their identity/existence. Please wield your immense power to protect those most at risk, at J.K. Rowling."
At number 7, Eddie Redmayne. Another celebrity who spoke out against J.K. Rowling was actor Eddie Redmayne, who has starred in the other Wizarding World film franchise Fantastic Beasts. He was another celebrity who was appalled and taken aback by the offensive comments that the author was making and felt the need to state his case on the matter, and he did not support the author's controversial views. In an interview with Variety, the actor said, quote, "Respect for transgender people remains a cultural imperative, and over the years I've been trying to constantly educate myself. As someone who's worked with both J.K. Rowling and members of the trans community, I wanted to make it absolutely clear where I stand. I disagree with Jo's comments. Trans women are women, trans men are men, and non-binary identities are valid. I would never want to speak on behalf of the community, but I do know that my dear transgender friends and colleagues are tired of this constant questioning of their identities, which all too often results in violence and abuse. They simply want to live their lives peacefully, and it's time to let them do so." End quote. In a way, he made it even clearer that the author's views were wrong and kind of warned his fans against JK's views, knowing how hurtful they can be to some.
In at number 6, Halsey. Halsey decided to subtweet J.K. Rowling in June of 2020 as a response to her anti-trans statements. Halsey tweeted, quote, "Imagine writing a generation-defining series about a youth appraisal that defeats a tyrannical monster motivated by the preservation of a pure blood, and looking at this time in the world and going, yep, I'm gonna invalidate trans people." Halsey has been a vocal member of the LGBT+ community since coming out in 2015 as bisexual. Halsey now uses she/they pronouns as well.
At number 5, Mary Lambert. Though some other celebrities were a little calmer with their words when calling out J.K. Rowling, singer Mary Lambert certainly did not hold back when she bashed the author on Twitter in response to her criticisms of trans people. The singer tweeted a couple of scathing messages to the author saying, quote, "What the actual F? This is so disgraceful. J.K. Rowling, of all the hills to die on, and for what reason? Trans women are women, and they're fighting for their lives. When you push this trans exclusionary agenda, you make their lives infinitely more difficult. Shame on you. You have the power and influence. Why would you do this? What does it achieve? Do you feel like more of a woman when you punch down? Are you threatened? Some trans men menstruate. Why does that affect you? Why do you want to police that?" End quote. The anger in this tweet really just says it all and kind of serves as a notice to everyone that so many people will not stand for this kind of discrimination. In a way, this was almost a warning to JK that in times like these there will be fury when you make such offensive comments about a group of people who already face so much discrimination and violence daily.
In at number 4, Jonathan Van Ness. After JK posted a controversial tweet about the concept of sex and gender identity in June of 2020, Jonathan Van Ness tweeted out condemning the comments. Van Ness quote tweeted writing, quote, "Trans women are women. Trans black people and trans non-black people are discriminated against every single day. They're dying. We're fighting for black people and trans people, and you're doing this?" Van Ness is an American hairdresser, podcast host, activist, actor, author, and television personality, best known from the show Queer Eye.
At number 3, India Moore. When J.K. Rowling was facing backlash for her comments about the trans community, the cast of the FX show Pose spoke out about it. This show focuses a lot on stories of various members of the LGBTQ+ community, and some of the show's cast members are also part of said community. One trans actress from the show, India Moore, spoke out against J.K. and her thoughts on the matter, condemning the author's comments. In an interview with Variety, India said, quote, "I think she's speaking from this place of sheer stupidity. I mean, it's just so dumb. She doesn't even understand how much death and violence are behind those opinions that she's sharing on social media right now. Like she's contributing to so much violence through her airing out of her thoughts and ideas and opinions. She's contributing to a stigma that is continuing to take our lives today." End quote. The actress also said that JK's comments were, quote, "her lack of acknowledgement or realization that it's her privilege that allows her to even be able to voice those opinions in the first place." End quote. This almost served as a warning to other fans of the author's work of her ignorance in situations like this.
And at number 2, Stephen King. J.K. Rowling got into a Twitter feud with legendary writer Stephen King after he tweeted out in support of trans women. After King tweeted out that trans women are women, J.K. Rowling allegedly blocked him. After the media started to fan the flames of a feud between the two writers, King came back online to clarify his stance. He said in another tweet, quote, "My opinion is that Jo Rowling is wrong about trans people. Leave shitty and hateful out of it, please." When speaking about the supposed feud with the Daily Beast, King said, quote, "Jo cancelled me, she sort of blocked me and all that. Here's the thing, she's welcome to her opinion." Then going on to say that if Rowling thinks that trans women are dangerous or other things, she has the right to have her own opinion. Then after King decided to tweet out in support of trans people, that's when Rowling had the problem. King then said, quote, "It's like the old saying, I don't agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. So nobody has cancelled J.K. Rowling, she's doing fine. I just felt that her belief was, in my opinion, wrong. We have different opinions, but that's life."
Finally, in at number 1, Peppermint. Trans drag queen Peppermint also spoke out against J.K. Rowling's comments, especially those that she made calling trans advocates, quote, "hostile and alienating," end quote. The RuPaul's Drag Race alum told sources that she wouldn't stand for the comments that the author was making, saying, quote, "Every single post, every single tweet comes off as innocent and unassuring, but it's extremely calculated. JK knows exactly what she's trying to say and knows exactly what she's trying to do, and now we know exactly who she is. I won't allow her to insert her ignorance on the situation," unquote. The way she said that now we know exactly who JK really is almost serves as a notice or warning to any other fans of the author's work that JK's ideologies away from the Wizarding world are something to acknowledge and should be talked about. For a lot of Harry Potter fans, they kind of broke up with this franchise after the scandal because supporting it meant that they were also supporting the author and her views, and for many that meant that they weren't being a good ally. Now that people have really seen the author's true colors, they're warning others about it, and that has hurt JK's reputation and career severely.
Starting off this list, we got Beyonce. After Beyonce released the hit album Lemonade, Amy thought it would be funny if she made a video of her and some of her snatched cast members lip-syncing along to it. The video featured Goldie Hawn, Wanda Sykes, and Joan Cusack. Even though the video was released on Tidal, seemingly approved by Beyonce and Jay-Z, it got tons of backlash from fans. Most of the claims centered around the fact that regardless of approval or not, this was not Schumer's work to parody. Some also felt it was particularly tone deaf for them to parody a song about black empowerment. Amy addressed the backlash in an article, admiring how the album brought women together. But Amy didn't address the key issues that fans had, making it clear that Amy didn't understand why it was out of place. Next up, Tammy Pescatelli. Since Amy Schumer has become an A-list comedian, she's been accused of joke stealing on many occasions. Most of the drama took place on Twitter, where Kathleen Madigan, Wendy Liebman, and Tammy Pescatelli all alleged that Amy stole jokes from them. Pescatelli was the most vocal, tweeting, quote, "What's always been amazing to me is that she purports to be a feminist, yet only steals from other female comedians. If we all call her on it, we are jealous or career shamed. Be successful. We want you to do well, just do it with your own material. By the way, she blocked me." One of the jokes was from Kathleen Madigan, where she said Oprah was so rich she could hire someone to slap food out of her hand as a weight loss tool. The joke that Amy stole from Pescatelli was talking about how women will dress their boyfriends so horribly that nobody else will want to date them. Amy used this joke in her movie Trainwreck. Next up, Equinox staff. Amy Schumer can be pretty full of herself. She made that clear when she pulled the "Do you know who I am" card at a New York City gym. Basically, she tried to walk into the Equinox without presenting her membership card, which is standard policy. One employee said, quote, "She felt entitled to just walk in. She didn't want to show her key fob and wanted to be able to go in and not be questioned." Apparently, when the employee asked for her ID, Amy replied that she's famous. The source added, quote, "It was clear that Amy wanted to go in under the radar and not even stop to have the desk clerk look up her account on a computer. Apparently, Amy was so peeved about the entire experience that she left the gym altogether." Next up, Jackson Murphy. Jackson Murphy, a 17-year-old film critic who took a photo with Amy at the Critics' Choice Awards, tweeted a raunchy caption along with a photo of him and Schumer, and it totally backfired. Schumer is known for her self-deprecating humor, specifically relating to sleeping around. So the critic posted a photo of the two of them with the caption, quote, "Spent the night with Amy Schumer, certainly not the first guy to write that." Even though it was a lighthearted jab, Schumer tweeted back clearly disappointed. She wrote, quote, "I get it, cause I'm a whole glad I took a photo with you. Hi to your dad." Jackson quickly apologized once he realized her feelings were hurt, claiming he thought she would like the joke. Schumer later tweeted back, quote, "That's really okay, honey. I just remember thinking you and your dad were sweet, and it was just a bummer to read that." Some people felt that Amy had the appropriate reaction, but others felt she was way too harsh on the teen for a simple joke that she makes oftentimes about herself. Next up, Steve-O. While Schumer and Steve-O were on the panel for Comedy Central's roast of Charlie Sheen in 2012, she told a joke that many felt crossed the line. At the time, Steve-O's good friend and collaborator Ryan Dunn had just passed away in a drunk driving accident. Amy's joke was, quote, "I truly am, no joke, sorry for the loss of your friend Ryan Dunn. I know you must have been thinking it could have been me, and I know we were all thinking, why wasn't it?" The camera then panned to Steve-O's face, and he was not laughing. Fans immediately came to his defense after the special, trashing Schumer, but Steve-O actually came to her defense and said it was a good joke. While on the Big J show at KRSQ Hot 101.9, Steve-O said that Schumer asked him for help to calm his fans. Steve-O agreed, saying, quote, "Hey everybody, it was a roast, you know, where people say mean things to each other on purpose. That silly little was just doing her job. To this day, she will not apologize for the joke." Next up, Ashley Graham. Like I said before, Amy Schumer is very self-deprecating, and she often talks about how her body is not model-esque. but it seems that she doesn't like when other people put that label onto her. When Glamour magazine included Amy Schumer in the 2016 Chic at Any Size issue, alongside plus-size stars like Melissa McCarthy, Adele and Ashley Graham, Schumer was offended by her inclusion. She shared her thoughts on Instagram, writing, quote, "I think there's nothing wrong with being plus-size, beautiful, healthy women. Plus size is considered size 16 in America. I go between a size 6 and 8. Glamour Mag put me in their plus size only issue without asking me or letting me know, and it doesn't feel right to me. Young girls seeing my body type thinking that is plus size." Although many understood Schumer's point, some were confused, as she constantly speaks about not being super skinny. She even said at the Glamour Women of the Year Awards, quote, "I'm like 160 pounds and can catch a D whenever I want." Ashley Graham didn't like the sentiment and clapped back in Cosmopolitan, saying, quote, "Amy talks about being a big girl in the industry. You thrive on being a big girl, but when you're grouped in with us, you're not happy about it. That to me felt like a double standard." And lastly, Amy Schumer herself. One fan exposed that Amy is rude to her fans, and even caught the whole thing on video. While Amy was touring in Greenville, South Carolina, she posted a photo of a fan and claimed that he was harassing her to get a photo. The caption said in part, quote, "This guy in front of his family just ran up next to me, scared the out of me, put a camera in my face. I asked him to stop and he said, 'No, it's America and we paid for you.'" Apparently she asked him to stop multiple times, but he did not. She finished off saying that she was no longer going to take any photos with fans because of this guy in Greenville. But the fan, named Leslie Brewer, responded with his own Instagram post. He posted a video of his interaction with Schumer, and it was very different from what Schumer described. And in the video, Amy is calmly asking him to delete a photo of her that she didn't like. In response to this video, a source shared, quote, "She's always hated taking photos with fans, even before she had a TV show or a movie. She couldn't be bothered then and she can't be bothered now." After this all exploded, she said she will still take pictures with fans only if she feels like it.